The saying goes that blood is thicker than water. But I learned the hard way that some family ties deserve to be severed. For 28 years, I believed my sister Olivia was my closest ally. We shared childhood secrets, teenage rebellions, and adult dreams. I would have done anything for her. And I did repeatedly, until the day she took everything from me. This is the story of betrayal within the bonds of family, and how karma eventually restored the balance that human cruelty had disrupted. Growing up in our modest suburban home, Olivia and I were just 15 months apart in age. Close enough to be companions, but separate enough to be individuals. She was the elder, always slightly ahead in school in experiences, in our parents' expectations. I never minded following in her footsteps. She cleared the path, and I walked it with my own style. At least that was how I saw it then. Our parents were hardworking people who valued education and stability. Our father managed a local bank branch, and our mother taught elementary school. They were not wealthy, but they were careful with money, saving diligently for our college educations and their own retirement. Never depend on anyone else for your security, our father would say, reviewing his meticulous budget spreadsheets at the kitchen table. Family takes care of family, but you need to stand on your own feet first. I took those lessons to heart, working part-time jobs through high school and college, graduating with minimal student debt thanks to scholarships and my parents' savings. Olivia took a different approach. She was always more social, more willing to accept help, more focused on appearances than foundations. She changed majors 3 times, took 5 years to graduate, and accumulated significant debt despite our parents' contributions. She will figure it out, our mother would say when I expressed concern about Olivia's spending habits. Your sister has always landed on her feet. She was right in a way. Olivia did always seem to find a soft landing, usually cushioned by someone else's resources. After college, while I worked my way up at a marketing firm, saving for a down payment on a small condo, Olivia moved from job to job, relationship to relationship, accumulating experiences and connections, but little stability. Then our parents died. The drunk driver who crossed the center line one rainy Tuesday evening took both of them instantly. One moment they were returning from their weekly dinner date, the next they were gone. Olivia and I, at 26 and 25, became orphans in adulthood, unprepared for the emotional devastation or the practical complications that followed. The funeral was a blur of black clothing and casseroles, hollow condolences and paperwork. So much paperwork. As the executor of our parents' will, I shouldered most of the burden, juggling grief with logistics while Olivia processed her emotions more publicly. Surrounded by friends who provided emotional support I was too busy to seek. I cannot believe this is happening, she sobbed at the memorial service, leaning heavily on her boyfriend of the month, a quiet architect named James who seemed genuinely concerned for her well-being. They were supposed to be here for so much longer. I nodded mutely, holding back my own tears as I confirmed details with the funeral director. Someone had to remain functional. Someone had to make arrangements and sign documents, and thank people for coming. That someone, as usual, was me. The reading of the will came 3 weeks later. Our parents, true to their careful nature, had left everything in perfect order. Their modest home was paid off. There were retirement accounts, life insurance policies, and specific bequests of sentimental items. Everything was to be divided equally between Olivia and me, with one significant exception: our maternal grandmother's ruby ring, a family heirloom of considerable value, both emotional and financial, was specifically left to me. Your sister always admired that ring, our mother had written in a personal letter attached to the will. But I am leaving it to you because you share Grandma Rose's practical spirit and determination. Olivia will understand. Olivia did not understand. As we left the lawyer's office, her face was tight with controlled anger. That ring should have been mine, she said flatly as we reached the parking lot. I was closer to Grandma. I was named after her middle name. Mom knew how much I loved that ring. I am sorry, Liv, I said, genuinely regretful for her disappointment despite my own grief. But it was Mom's decision. Everything else is split equally. Easy for you to say, she snapped. You have your career and your condo and your savings. I have student loans and rent I can barely afford. That ring could have made a real difference for me. I hesitated, torn between sympathy for her situation and frustration at her familiar pattern of financial irresponsibility. The inheritance will help with that. We can talk about how to allocate the liquid assets if you need more upfront. She shook her head dismissively. Just forget it. Clearly Mom thought you deserved it more. Perfect daughter gets the perfect prize. That barb stung, not least because it was so contrary to how I had always viewed our relationship. I had never competed with Olivia. I had simply made different choices. But before I could formulate a response, she had climbed into her car and driven away, leaving me alone in the parking lot with the weight of grief and new resentment. The following months were consumed with settling our parents' estate. The house needed to be cleaned out, repaired and sold. Accounts needed to be closed or transferred. Every object, from furniture to photographs, required decisions about its fate. I took a leave of absence from work to manage it all, while Olivia contributed sporadically, always with complaints about the emotional toll and her limited free time. I need to keep working, she explained when I asked why she had missed another scheduled packing session. I cannot just drop everything like you can. I bit back the obvious retort that I had not dropped everything, but rather had arranged a temporary leave, using vacation days and unpaid time that strained my own finances. Instead, I continued sorting through decades of our parents' lives, boxing memories and cataloging assets as efficiently as possible. By the time the house sold, at a fair price in a decent market, Olivia and I were barely speaking. The tension over the ruby ring had expanded to encompass every decision, every item, every memory. She questioned my choices as executor, implied I was keeping things from her, and resented the authority the will had placed in my hands. Nevertheless, when the final accounting was complete, I transferred her full share of the inheritance to her account without hesitation. It was substantial enough to clear her student debt and provide a fresh start. Our parents would have wanted that. Despite our strained relationship, I still wanted her to be secure. Thank you, she said stiffly when the transfer was confirmed. I suppose this concludes our business. It does not have to be just business, Liv, I said, attempting reconciliation. We are still sisters. We are the only family each other has left. She nodded without warmth. I need some time. This has all been a lot. I will call you when I am ready. That call never came. Instead, 6 months later, I received an invitation to her wedding. To James, the architect who had supported her through the funeral. The invitation was formal and impersonal, as if sent to a distant acquaintance rather than her only sister. I RSVP'd affirmatively despite my hurt feelings. Some relationships transcend petty conflicts, I told myself. Family is forever. The wedding was elaborate, surprisingly so for someone who had claimed financial hardship so recently. Designer dress, premium venue, lavish flowers, top-tier catering. I wondered briefly how they were affording it all on an architect's salary and her entry-level position at a public relations firm. But assumed James must have family money or savings. The ceremony was beautiful, and I cried genuine tears of happiness for my sister despite our estrangement. During the reception, I approached her with my gift, a handcrafted photo album filled with restored pictures of our parents and grandparents, including several of Olivia as a child with our grandmother. I thought you might want these for your new home, I said, offering the album and a hopeful smile. Congratulations, Liv. You look beautiful, and James seems wonderful. She accepted the gift with cool politeness. Thank you for coming. And for this. I should circulate, so many guests to greet. Before I could respond, she had moved away, swept into a conversation with her new in-laws. I spent the remainder of the reception at a table with distant cousins, nursing a glass of champagne, and wondering if time would ever heal whatever wound my sister was carrying. 3 weeks later, I discovered the source of funding for the lavish wedding. My grandmother's ruby ring, the heirloom our mother had specifically left to me, was missing from my safe deposit box. In its place was a cubic zirconia replica so precise that only a jeweler's inspection confirmed the substitution. The bank's security footage revealed the culprit. Olivia, using the spare key to my apartment that she had never returned, had taken my safe deposit box key. while I was showering during one of her rare visits, months earlier. She had visited the bank the following day, accessed my box using my key and her status as my sister to satisfy the minimal security questions, and made the switch. The perfect crime, except for one critical mistake. She had worn the genuine ruby ring at her wedding, where it had been photographed extensively by the professional photographer. The same distinctive setting, the same unusual cut that had been in our family for generations, now adorned her finger in glossy 8x10 prints. My initial shock quickly turned to rage, then to cold determination. I contacted the police and filed a report, providing the photographic evidence and the jeweler's assessment. I called her directly, giving her one chance to return the ring voluntarily. "I do not know what you are talking about," she lied smoothly. "Maybe you misplaced the real ring yourself. Or maybe it was never real to begin with. Have you considered that Mom might have sold the original years ago?" The audacity of her denial, the casual cruelty of suggesting our mother had deceived me, crystallized something in my heart. This was not my sister anymore. This was someone who would steal, lie, and manipulate without remorse. Someone who valued a material object over our relationship. Someone who needed to face consequences. The legal process moved slowly. The district attorney was reluctant to pursue charges in what he termed a family matter, despite the clear evidence of theft. Olivia claimed I had gifted her the ring as a wedding present, that our mother had always intended it for the first daughter to marry, that the entire situation was a misunderstanding stemming from my jealousy of her happiness. James stood by her story, his architect's integrity apparently compromised by love or complicity. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into their finances. The wedding expenses were just the beginning. They had placed a substantial down payment on a new house in an exclusive neighborhood. They had purchased a luxury SUV. Olivia had quit her PR job to focus on starting a family. Their lifestyle far exceeded James's architect's salary, even with her inheritance included. The investigator uncovered what the police had missed. James was under investigation by his firm for embezzlement. Client funds for 3 major projects had been mysteriously depleted, with documentation altered to hide the discrepancies. The timing of these financial irregularities coincided perfectly with their spending spree. I provided this information to both the police and to James's firm, anonymously in the latter case. Within weeks, the firm's internal audit confirmed the embezzlement. Criminal charges followed. James, facing prison time, quickly agreed to a plea deal that implicated Olivia in knowingly spending the stolen funds. The investigation into the ring theft was reopened as part of a broader pattern of criminal behavior. I did not attend their separate trials. I had said my piece in detailed statements to investigators, explaining the history of the ring, the evidence of the theft, and my direct confrontation with Olivia. I described our parents' values, their emphasis on honesty and self-reliance, and how completely their elder daughter had betrayed those principles. I still loved my sister, I told the prosecutor, but love without accountability was merely enabling. Olivia received a suspended sentence and probation for her role in spending the embezzled funds, largely due to her status as a first-time offender and her agreement to make restitution. James was less fortunate, sentenced to 3 years for the larger crime of embezzlement. The ruby ring was returned to me by court order, though its emotional significance had been irreparably damaged. For months after the trials concluded, I heard nothing from Olivia. Mutual acquaintances reported that she had moved back into an apartment, was working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and was divorcing James while he served his sentence. I felt no pleasure in her downfall, only a profound sadness for what could have been, for the sister I had lost long before any theft occurred. Then, on the 3rd anniversary of our parents' death, my doorbell rang. Olivia stood on my threshold, thinner and paler than I remembered, her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a worn sweater. "Hello," she said softly. "I was hoping we could talk." I hesitated, protective of the peace I had established in my life. About what exactly? About everything. About how wrong I was. About whether there is any way forward from here. Her voice broke slightly on the last words. I stepped aside to let her in, maintaining an emotional distance that would have been unimaginable in our earlier relationship. We sat in my living room, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor. "I do not expect forgiveness," she began, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "What I did was unforgivable. Not just the ring, but everything that came before and after. The lies, the accusations, the manipulation." "Why?" I asked, the question that had haunted me for years. "Why would you steal something that was not just valuable but irreplaceable? Something that meant so much to our family?" She closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering courage. "Because I was jealous. Not of the ring itself, but of what it represented. Mom chose you to have it because you were like Grandma, practical, responsible, trustworthy. Everything I was not. Everything I could not seem to be, no matter how hard I tried. You never had to be me, Olivia. You just had to be honest. I know that now." She looked directly at me for the first time. "The past 3 years have been educational. Losing everything, James, the house, my reputation, your trust, it forces a kind of reckoning. I have had to rebuild from nothing. Actually, from less than nothing, given the restitution payments." "And have you?" I asked. "Rebuilt?" A small, sad smile crossed her face. "I am trying. I have a steady job as an administrative assistant. I am taking accounting classes at night. I have a therapist who is helping me understand my patterns of behavior. It is not the life I imagine, but it is an honest one finally." We talked for hours that afternoon, peeling back layers of resentment and misunderstanding that had accumulated over decades. She spoke of feeling overshadowed by my achievements, of using material possessions to fill an internal void, of the toxic relationship with James that had encouraged her worst instincts. I shared my own feelings of abandonment during our parents' estate settlement, my hurt at her coldness, my struggle to reconcile the sister I had loved with the woman who could steal from me so callously. "I did not come here seeking reconciliation," she said as the conversation wound down. "I do not have that right. I came because you deserved an apology, a real one face to face. And because Mom and Dad would have wanted me to try, at least, to make amends." I studied her, looking for signs of the manipulation that had characterized our recent interactions. Instead, I saw exhaustion, regret, and a fragile hope that I could not bring myself to extinguish entirely. "Amends take time," I said finally. "Trust, once broken, cannot be repaired overnight. But we are still sisters. That has not changed, even when everything else has." We agreed to move forward cautiously. Monthly coffee meetings. No financial entanglements. Clear boundaries and direct communication. Small steps toward rebuilding something that could never be what it was, but might eventually become something new and possibly stronger, for having been broken and mindfully mended. 2 years have passed since that afternoon. Our relationship has evolved into a careful friendship, distinct from the unquestioning sisterhood of our youth. Olivia has completed her accounting program and works for a small nonprofit that helps low-income families establish financial stability. The irony of this career path is not lost on either of us, but it suits her newfound commitment to honest living. She has made the final restitution payment and is slowly rebuilding her credit and her self-respect. I have moved forward in my own life as well. A promotion at work, a serious relationship, community involvement that would make our parents proud. The ruby ring remains in my safe deposit box, its security upgraded, and its key more carefully guarded. I may never wear it again, its history now too complicated for casual display, but I maintain it as part of our family legacy, perhaps for a future niece or daughter, who will know its full story before receiving it. Some might say karma gave my sister exactly what she deserved, the loss of everything she had stolen or gained dishonestly. I prefer to think that karma simply reset the balance, creating space for authentic growth and genuine connection. The universe has its own wisdom, its own timeline for justice and redemption. Blood may be thicker than water, but truth is the foundation of any lasting relationship. My sister and I are building on that foundation now, one honest conversation at a time. It is harder than blindly trusting, more rewarding than reflexively cutting ties. It is the complicated, imperfect work of real family, not the fantasy version of our childhood. but the mature reality of two flawed humans who share history and DNA, and the possibility of a better future. Our parents taught us that family takes care of family, what they could not teach us, what we had to learn through pain and consequence, is that true care sometimes requires hard boundaries, uncomfortable truths, and the courage to allow natural consequences to unfold. Love without accountability is merely enabling. Accountability without love is just punishment. Finding the balance between them is the work of a lifetime, work that my sister and I have only just begun. As for the ruby ring that started this journey, it sits safely in my possession, its deep red stone catching light like memory, like warning, like promise. Some inheritances are more complicated than others. Some betrayals lead eventually to deeper understanding. Some losses circle back, transformed by time and truth, into unexpected gains. This has been my experience of family, of justice, of the slow but certain workings of karma. Not as vengeance, but as restoration of what should have been all along.